All right, welcome back, everyone. Once again, this is Payload Pat, and this is a continuation of our series, Cade's Cadence. And on our road to getting certified in the CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator exam, as well as the developer CCAD, CKAD. So last week we did a pretty fun exercise as far as part of the Kubernetes challenges that Code Cloud has provided us. So we're going to be working on something very similar, just a different scenario, but just getting us familiar with real life, like questions and being able to solve them together and no edits or anything like that. Just us together, problem solving. So if you guys are watching the recording, definitely like and subscribe. And for those that are here, as far as live in a session, and we definitely appreciate you participating and spending time with us on this lovely Valentine's Day. So we are in love with Kubernetes. So it's going to show our love and get some problems answered. And yeah, let's have some fun. So enough with that intro. So we have the question up here, which is pretty much giving us the architecture. It says deploy the given architecture to vote namespace. And we have to click on each icon to see the details and then pretty much just go through each section and get everything working. So let's go ahead and see what the first question is asking us. I know it before was a, let me make it a little bit bigger and see if I can do a plus or something. But it looks a little bit better for those here that are watching the recording. All right. Maybe zoom that and let's pull this down a little bit. Okay, well, I guess it doesn't really want to work with me today, but okay, that's fine. Okay, cool. So the first portion is and I'm gonna just zoom this out. So the first portion is telling us here, okay, so we have a voting portal and it just says voting portal. I want to make sure there's nothing missing there. Okay, no. Now it tells us, okay, now we got some stuff here. So we need to create a service. So before we do a service, I think it'll make more sense to create the actual deployment. So we're gonna start here. Well, actually, we need to start here as far as creating the entire namespace, right? So we can do k get ns or k get namespaces, and it will show us every namespace that we have currently available. So it looks like there's no new or created namespaces. These are all the default namespaces that come on a general cluster. So we first need to go ahead and create this namespace. So let's go ahead and do k create ns, and then the namespace is just called vote. So let's name the namespace vote. So we have that created, and a namespace is simply just a logically way to isolate components like services and Kubernetes resources into one segment of your cluster. So kind of like if you were like into networking, it's kind of like a VLAN, or just is a way that you can isolate your network. In this case, it'll be the resources there. So hopefully that's a great analogy there that gets you to understand that. So now if I go and do a check, this should at least show green. Okay, cool. All right. So that looks good. So now that we have our namespace, and if we do okay, get namespace, it should also show here at the bottom as far as vote. Awesome. Um, awesome. So let's go ahead and start from the left to the right. Just for simplicity's sake. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the deployment. And now it says we need to create a deployment. And that name of the deployment is vote deployment. It gives us the image and it needs to be running. So it doesn't say in the amount of replicas, so we automatically going to assume it's just one. So let's go and do that. So anybody wants to go ahead and try and go follow through the steps as far as what we should do to go and create this deployment?
For this one, just gonna do k create
Mm-hmm.
deployment. The name of the deployment, which is gonna be vote deployment
Okay, gotcha.
dash dash image, and then the name of that image.
Right. Let's do it.
And if that's all they're asking for, it should be good.
Should be good. All right, awesome. So, okay, create deployment, vote deployment as far as the name, and it's using the image code cloud example voting app. All right, so that looks good. So let's go and press enter. And I made a mistake. We need to go ahead and put namespace vote. So I'm going to delete the deployment, vote deployment. And this is in the default namespace. So that's how easily you can make a mistake like that. So you always want to make sure that you're doing these things in the right namespace. Because everything can be right, but if it's not in that namespace, it won't work. So let's do okay, get all. Well, let's get deployments minus in vote just to make sure that it's in there. And as we see here, it's showing up. And yeah, so that looks good. So I appreciate that. I'm just going to go ahead and just click check here just to make sure that that portion is good. It's running. Yep, perfect. All right, awesome. So the next thing that we can do is let's go and create the voting service. Um, and go again from left to right. So to create a service is quite simple. And again, for those who don't know what a service is a way that you can easily expose a pod. Um, and you won't have to necessarily know the name of the pod to be able to access it. So say you have 5 pods or 5 replicas of this in this deployment, you won't need to know exactly the IP address or the name, the host name of these pods. You just point it to the service and you just hit the endpoint of the service and you'll be able to get the contents of the pod itself. So it kind of make sure that you don't have to worry about the management of knowing all the intricacies of the pod name and in like the IP addressing and all that good stuff. So it's a nice way to um what do you call that abstract that away from you. So okay, let's go and create a service. So it's very simple to create a service. So since we already have the deployment created, we can do a kubectl expose and it's going to expose the pod. So we're going to expose the deployment actually, and then the name of the deployment, which we named, I believe it was vote deployment. Yep, right there. So um, it doesn't want to auto, but so kexpose um, deployment, vote deployment, and something must be wrong because it's not letting me tab. That's one thing I love about Kubernetes. Like if you do something weird, it usually tells you. Okay, all right. So yeah, I guess it's just acting weird, but so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do the expose deployment name the vote deployment, and then now we can do dash dash name, and the name of the deployment we want to name that is gonna be vote service. So we just name it vote service, and then we can go ahead and do port. So there's 3 things on here. There's a port, target port, and node port. Um, So to do that, and what the differences are, so the port is going, this port is representing the port outside of the container. So the container, the pod itself is its own thing, right? So that port itself needs to be 5,000. So the target port is actually the port within the container itself. So within um the pod inside the vote deployment pod, that container is using port 80 internally. Outside of the container, it's saying, hey, I need that port 80 to be translated to port 5,000 on the pod. Because again, pods can share all those containers inside that pod. It can be like 5 containers in there. They need to obviously have separate ports. So they may all need to have a target port of 80, but you would have to go ahead and separate them by having a unique port number, if that makes sense. So you can have like 5 pods that have the same target port 80 because they're isolated as far as their internal port, but outside they need to reflect a different port or they're going to be a port conflict. And then node port is a port that allows you to communicate outside of your cluster. So they'll be useful for someone that may not be inside, um, and trying to connect like some customer like this voting user, which is why we need to set up the vote service. So enough of that. So name vote service, and then we're gonna do dash dash port, and we're gonna say that's gonna be equal to 5,000. And then we can do target port as well. So we can do dash dash target port, and that's gonna equal port 80. And then we can do dash dash type, right? And that's going to give us a type of, we need a type of node port. I don't think it's capital. It will tell me if it's wrong, but it's usually capital node port. And then, yeah, that should be good. So what I can do is do a dash dash dry dash run, maybe. Let me see. Equals server. So usually we do dry run equals a client when we're creating like a pod, but dry run server is actually going to show you, like, for example, this case, node port is automatically going to get assigned a random number between 30,000 and 32,767. So with the dry run server, I believe it should go ahead, and if it lets me do it, it should go ahead and spit out the a random port, and I can just change it to the 31,000. Oh, it doesn't. Wait. Oh, you know why? I didn't put the namespace, so it couldn't find it. So that's why it was acting a little funny.
Are we able to just change the context in this case to vote?
Um, you could. You definitely could. And then you won't have to go ahead and continuously put minus in namespace. But yeah, it's a safe bet. But only thing is when you have another question and you're doing something, you got to remember to change it back to the either the default namespace or the new namespace that you're working on. So as you see here, let me try to open this up a little bit for you all so you can see a little bit better. Okay. All right. So remember before we always use dry run equals client. So now I did server. So it's actually going to show you as if you already installed it on your server. So now it gave us a node port of 32,769. I said 767. So it actually goes up to 69. So now what you can do is I'm going to go ahead and just redirect that. And I can create this and I can just kubectl edit the service, but I'll just do it this way just to show you all how you can use the dry run equal server option. So I'll just name this one vote svc.yaml, right? And then I do vi vote svc.yaml. And then it's also going to be something I'm going to have to change, I believe, but it's okay. So node port 31,000. Everything else looks good. Target port, as we see there, is using TCP. And then the port 5,000. And the selector is super important in the options of having using a service, because this is what is going to assign the pods to the actual service. So if this selector or this label on the pod doesn't match the selector in the service, it's not going to bind to one another. So the pods won't be able to be serviced by the service itself. So I need to do a few things here. I believe I need to remove my creation timestamp and stuff, but let's see if it actually gives us an error. So okay, create minus F. So we're doing a create. We're going to create minus F as in for file. I'm going to reference the actual file here. And I knew it was going to give me an error. I just wanted to see it there. So I'm just going to delete this. I can delete all of this. And then I can delete this too. And then I can delete the creation timestamp. So probably this would be easier to create it and then just edit it. Perfect. So there we go. So we have the service created now. So if I do K hit SVC and then slash or comma EP for endpoint, and endpoint in this case is going to be just the pod. So what pods are there? And we can show you how it matches. So K get service endpoint minus namespace vote. And as we see here, there is the service here named vote service. And then we have the endpoints here. So the endpoints, there's one endpoint on the service, and it's going to be 10.244.192.2. If we go ahead and do a k get pods minus namespace vote, this is going to be the same IP address of that pod. Let me do minus o wide 10.244.192.2 as you see there. So it's associated with that service. So that looks good. So I can go ahead and just do a check, and that should give me a green light as far as the service if I did everything correct there. Yep, perfect. So moving along, I can just move these up. Let me move this up here then. It's probably does good now, but hey, whatever. All right, cool. So hopefully that's making sense for you all. Any questions in the meantime?
Looking
All
good.
right, cool. All right, cool. So now we're gonna do the same thing with the Redis deployment as well. So I want someone else to go ahead and take the wheel on this one. Oh, this is an interesting one. With an empty dir volume request. So who wants to tackle this one? Oops. Where did it go? Um, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Don't worry. I'm not gonna pick on anyone yet. Hey Soho, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
I'm
I can
awesome.
help if you want. Great.
Let's do it. Come on, let's go for it.
All right, so we need to create the deployment radius, the image empty there, and the volume,
Mhm.
and also the. You
So
go down a little bit.
yeah. I'm gonna zoom out. I want to make it so people can see it in the thing here, but this should be fine for now. So this is all the requirements for that one.
All right. So first of all, I'll create the deployment. Okay, create deployment, and I take the name, which is Redis deployment.
Right, let's do it.
The name. After that, I'll put the image. I didn't see any namespace here, so I'll definitely create a dry run.
So yeah, we gotta because everything in here is in the vote namespace. So let me just make sure I don't forget it this time. So put it in the beginning as a reminder.
Okay, yeah.
All
Then
right.
I'm going to go dry run. Yeah,
And this time we're
everything
gonna do
client,
client.
client here.
All right,
And
cool.
dash O YAML and push that to probably a one.yaml,
One dot.
one.yaml. Yeah,
Okay, I'll name it one.yaml for you. All right, cool. So let's
yeah.
go
All
ahead
right. So VI inside. And
and
then verify the namespace,
just
the name of the app if everything is good, the image also, and then I'm going to specs.
all right, cool. Let me pull this up a little bit. So because we already resolved the namespace and the image,
Mm.
so we need to go ahead and make sure that the volume there is all right. Let me see if can I pull this up anymore? No, it won't let me. Okay, that's fine. Okay, cool. So we got the replicas.
Yeah, one replicas, yeah. The uh, container, yeah, inside container now, I'll add uh, vo- volume mount, volume mount, and then I'll add path, mount path, right? No, the name of the volume first, the name of the volume.
Yeah, in this case, it doesn't. It's not like a requirement which goes first, but yeah, it the name is one of those requirements. So, what's the name you're gonna name it?
Okay, I'll name that Redis. Yeah, there's a name there. Yeah, you can put Redis there.
Yep. So yeah,
Then
just want to make sure we are
and
doing
then the month path you put the month path there.
it. Not so bad, everyone, right? It's not so bad. So
All
now that
right.
we have the mount path,
So
what
then
else?
we can put the volume now. After the month path, volume is in the same line with container, so you can put that
Mm, yeah, I usually
before.
like to put it above just so I can make sure it's
Yeah,
aligned with containers. So
the volume,
volumes.
and then yeah, and then now you can put empty the name of the volume. Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Sorry for my slow typing. I just want to make sure. And as you see, guys, I'm copying and pasting. This is what you want to do to make sure that everything is like
Mhm.
correct. Even if you can type fast, it's just too much room for error. So
And then
so yeah. So what's the
empty
next thing?
here, empty there, empty there, yeah, and then put and then you get curly bracket, two curly bracket.
There you
Yeah,
go.
then nothing will work.
All right. I think that looks great. I think that was amazing. So let's make sure that the Kubernetes guys is filling us today. So let's go ahead and do okay create minus F one YAML. All right. It doesn't look bad so far. So let's do okay get deployment minus namespace vote. And what I'm going to do here is all right, good. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Kubernetes documentation for a quick second. And I'm going to do a favor for Desiree because he's probably like, why haven't I done this yet? So um, let me go ahead and just go on the docs and do a cheat sheet and use the handy dandy cheat sheet here. This is almost one of the only things that I use, which is going to be the KN. So let me copy that and go back.
So what is this one?
So this one, and I'll show you it. So pretty much is it creates an alias for its name KN, and
Oh,
it takes in one argument. You don't have to put an argument, but it takes one argument, and it pretty much assigns the current namespace to that argument that you put inside the
mhm.
the the curly brackets. The not curly, but the parentheses. My brain is fried right now. The yeah, the open and close bracket. So yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. So if I do kn now, so if I just do kn in the argument, so I can do kn vote. So the context has been modified. So if I do kget deployments, it should say the same thing as up here. As you see, okay, yep. And if I just do kn, it actually tells you back what the current namespace is set to vote. So very helpful. And
Oh, I see. So it's a function that take the
mhm.
namespace and then
Yeah,
turn on the current context. And every time you don't have to put the namespace, you just have every time that you need something on different namespace, you put kn namespace and
yeah.
then the context for you, and you just have to run the command without the namespace.
Yeah, exactly. So especially if you're
Uh,
doing the exam and you're kind of like nervous about it, it's very helpful, but it can also be dangerous too. So it's one of those things that you just have to practice. This is something that I would recommend you practice before you do it on the exam. But for me, it was it's very helpful. I love using it. And I know I remember at some point that I was looking at some videos online and they were trying to tell you how to, oh yeah, memorize this function before the exam. I'm like, it's right there in the cheat sheet. So remember, it's right here in the cheat sheet. You go down right here to the cube CTL context and configuration. It's the last one, so it's very easy to remember. And just KN K cube CTL
mhm.
namespace. That's an easy way to remember it. So just copy it, paste it in there. But this one won't be automatically configured in
Hello?
cluster. Oh yeah. Was that for us, or I guess you were on the phone? Okay, yeah, I don't think that was for us. Okay.
Yeah, uh, uh, PG, yeah. I'm planning to take my exam, but I will need probably a one-on-one with one of you guys who already passed the exam because I'm getting confused regarding some of the questions. So if you
Bar
have
increases.
probably,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is what we're here for. So,
yeah. And then also, do you have a video where you went through some of the question of the exam and I can watch, you know?
yeah, we do like some of the mock questions, but what I'm going to do is probably create something a little bit more. tailored to the exam and like some of the questions I got. I just don't want to get like
Mm.
in trouble for doing like
Oh,
exact questions, but I can do some like similar questions. I'll do one like a series of like the top 5 questions that you need to master the kubectl the kubectl the Kubernetes um the administrator one. So yeah, I'll do you that. I'll do you that solid. So I'll let you know for sure. But look at that. You got it all right. So everything looks good. We all got green lights here for the deployment. So great job, Soho. And trust me, you're closer than you think you are. I know you're already ready to go for the exam. So we're gonna do the same thing as we did previously. But this time it just wants us to use a cluster IP. So it's going to be even a little bit simpler as well, which is again, cluster IP is just going to be networking internally. So everything within the cluster was able to communicate. And that's the default functionality, with pods and networking in a cluster. All all pods are able to communicate with one another, internally at least. So to do this, let's go ahead and just speed it up. So I'm just going to do a K. I can just do K expose now um deployment. And then the deployment is going to be, we have 2 of them. We named it Redis, right? So Redis deployment, then the dash dash name is going to be equal to Redis. And then we can do dash dash port equals 6379, right? So very interesting thing as well to bring up. So when you just specify the port and you don't specify the target port is automatically going to assume the port. So you don't have to do dash dash target port like we did in the last one, because the target port and the port is the same. So that's one thing you don't need to worry about. And as well as cluster IP, the default type for a deployment, for a service is cluster IP. So we wouldn't have to do anything. So this actually will take care of this question. kubectl expose the deployment. We named it Redis deployment. So we're exposing this deployment here, and we're going to name it Redis as far as what is required here. And we're using port 6379, which is the Redis port. So now if I do a K describe, what do I do? K get port, K get service minus, Redis deployment. Well, Redis, right? Minus O YAML. You can see that it automatically has a type cluster IP because that's the default. And if you see here, target port is also 6379. So you didn't have to specify in this case because they're the same. So that's just one thing that you can not necessarily worry about, in this case. So let's go ahead and check, make sure that this is good to go. All right, perfect. So that looks good. So now we have the first half pretty much of this done. And it's literally the same thing. It's just getting us used to setting up services and deployments. And I always think a good thing to do is check if it actually connected to that pod, which is it did, but let's make sure. So okay, get EP for endpoint and service. All right. So now we're gonna have 2 separate ones, which is gonna be for the Redis and the boat service. So as you see Redis here and the service, so there is indeed a port, because sometimes you may get a question on the exam that says the service does not have any pods connected to it. Why is that? And it's going to 100% be because the label that's on this port, that's on this pod, does not match the service, does not match the label that the service is looking for. And that means that they're incompatible, and it's not going to say you're not a match. So I'm not going to bind to you. So hopefully that makes sense. Um, so next one, moving along. So this one looks very simple. So I'll just go and create a new deployment. So we're gonna do K create deployment. We're gonna name it worker. Okay, and then we're gonna use this image. All right. And then that's it. Just create kubectl, create deployment, named worker, and we're just gonna use this image. Oh, I didn't put dash as image. I'm rushing. Image equals code cloud. So let's get deployments again. And if you want to not have to continue to do get deployment multiple times, You should be able to see it pop up.
But I think it's supposed to it needs to listen also to the DB service.
Yeah. Well, I'm just referencing this part here. Wait, it just went
Um,
down. Oh no, wait, did it? Oh, so this is interesting, right? So this saying is telling us to create a deployment, right? However, it looks like it's just like it's saying ready 0 out of 1 after a couple seconds. And this is something that's very consistent with another type of image called the busy box image. So whenever there's a deployment and that image is not necessarily running anything, it's just going to go ahead and like it's not ready because it's done. Like it does its thing and then it like shuts down. So this worker, we actually need to modify this and we need to do something to it. What do you guys think we should do to, to modify this worker from just shutting down after every couple of seconds? In fact, let's do a K. Let's get some logs or let's describe it. K describe pod worker. It's going to be worker something, right? So let's see what happens. So the image pulled successfully. And it's saying an image back off. Image pull back off. Let's see. Crash loop back off. Terminated. What is wrong? Service account, projected volume, best effort. So this doesn't really give us much detail. So let's go ahead and see if we can do a logs. Let's do a K get events. I like to do that. So K get events. See if there's anything that's going on. All right. So nothing's like super abnormal, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to edit that deployment. So, okay, edit deployment and then name worker. And what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to see if this fixes the problem because I don't know if it will, but I think it's related to this here. Okay, no other issues there. Okay, I just wanted to check. So we got our image and I'm just going to do O. And now I'm just going to do a something with args, args. So I'm just going to run it. I'm going to have it run a command. And in that command, I just want it to do this right here. So shell, and then we can do -C, and then we can do a sleep. Let's do a sleep for 1 day, right? And let's see what happens with that. I want to see what happens. So now it's edited, so we should be able to see some deployment. It should retry it now. And now what are we getting? It's 1 out of 1. Because now that worker pod is actually doing something. Before it was not doing anything, and that was just by seeing how it immediately restarted. Like it's saying I'm not because what the purpose of a pod or container is to run a process, right? So there's no official process associated with the pod. It's not going to run, and that's why a lot of times whenever you see BusyBox, if you just if I do K run BusyBox, um, goes BusyBox, it's not gonna run. It's gonna create, but if I do like if I get pods, for example, what is BusyBox doing? It's doing the same exact thing. So that's all it's doing because there's no processes running. It's looking for a process to run and it can't find it. So it immediately goes into a crash loop back off state. So that's something important to remember. So if something is asking you to use a BusyBox image and then you're running it and it's just not doing anything, it's because you need to have it run a command while it's alive. And it's just doing a sleep command. So now it's just saying, okay, I'm going to sleep. So you got me doing something. So it's just um a stubborn child that needs to be instructed to do something, for it to run, right? So K delete pod BusyBox just so you guys can understand that example. And if I do a refresh, this should now be in green. because it has a process running. I hope. Yep, there you go. All right, and we're kind of wrapping up, so let's just go ahead and continue on. Anyone want to tackle this? I know we have some kind of new people who've joined. I don't want to put anyone on the spot or anything, but I would love um Darielle to go ahead and give it a try. We went over it a few times, so do you feel comfortable trying it out? I don't want to again put you on a spot. This is not like a area where we're like judgmental or we're all learning together. So I want you to go ahead and work through it with me. And we can solve this together. Is that all right?
Can I please pass until next time?
You wanna pass? You wanna double it and pass it to the next one? That's fine.
Yeah.
That works. That's okay. That's okay. It's all cool. Anyone else want to give it a try? If not, it's okay because I got some more hard questions I can give you guys later. So it's all good. Um, just kidding, by the way. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and speed through the rest of this one here. So this one is a little bit more difficult. So I'm not even gonna lie. Let's figure this one out together. So this is similar to the Redis deployment. So let's do a K create deployment. So we're gonna create a deployment, and we're gonna name that deployment DB deployment. Oops, if I can copy and paste. All right. I just ruined everything. Okay. All right. So K create deployment, name, DB deployment. We have our image, and it is here. I like when I make it spicy. So now it says, and add the environment variable Postgres host auto method equals trust. So we can do this imperatively. So we don't have to go ahead and do a dry run or anything like that. We still are going to do it because I have to do the empty directory and stuff, but at least I can have this ready to go. So I can do --env for environment. And this is actually pretty simple. You can just copy and paste this. So let's have that environment variable in there. And then everything else looks like we need to do it from the manifest. So I can do a --s dry run. And then oh, I must have something wrong. Okay, create deployment. Let me do this here. Something is off. See, that's why I love using the tab because it also tells you and warns you there's something going on. So I think I may not be in a, okay, I'm gonna write namespace. So what is it? What isn't it like? Okay, create deployment image. Okay, whatever. We'll get there if we get there. Dry run equal client and this output YAML. And then we're gonna name this one just db.yaml. Oh, it's a deployment. That's why I doesn't like it. Okay, if I was to do a create a pod, it would work. But because we're doing a deployment, it's not liking it. So we have to do it manually. So, but it's very easy anyway. So vidb by YAML. So that's why tab completion always tells you what's going on. I love it. It's a great indicator and debugger too. So very useful. So to do this, we need to do env, and then we're gonna do the environment variable. So we're gonna do here Postgres here, and then the value. So we can do, is it equal? No. So it should be like this. So Postgres host method, auth method, trust. So that's this part here. So we're done with that. Now we need to do the volume again, right? So I'm going to go back down here under that to volumes. No, volume mounts. And then the name of the volume mount is going to be db data. And then the mount path is just where is it going to be mounted to on this container. And we're going to have it mount to here. So if I log into this volume, if I log into this container, it's going to pretty much create this path here. associated with this empty dir. So that looks good. Now I just need to go ahead and create a volume. The volumes. Again, I'm going to do name. Gotta name the volume always. Remember, name the volume. The volume always needs to match the volume name here. Volume name here always needs to match here for it to be able to bind to it to one another. So that looks good. And then I need to do empty dir. And then curly brackets. So that looks good. And you always want to double check your work. But I think we're good there. So let's do okay, create minus F DB. Uh-oh, what did I mess up? Unknown field. Let's see what that means. Unknown field spec template containers env. Oh, I know what I didn't do. Wait, did I not do that? Oh, I did. Oh,
I think for environment, you're supposed to have name and value.
is that what it is?
Dash name, and then you put the name, and value, you put the value.
You're right. Let me, before you do that, I do want to check something. I'm just curious. Because it didn't, yeah, this is right. I think you're spot on with it. Yep. You're right. Create, let me VI. So that's why I like using the things here. So let's do name. So name. I knew something was off with this. Value. And I think we should be golden now. There we go. Good call out, Soho. So let's go ahead and get pods. Okay, and I'm gonna exec into it really quick. So I'm gonna do k exec minus IT, and then the name of the pod, and then I'm gonna do env. I want it to give me back the environment variable set in there, and I can do a grep minus I, and I'll just put Postgres, and it should populate. All right, so Postgres host auth method equals trust. So that's a quick way to double check that. And again, that command is kubectl exec minus IT, and it's interactive what TTY mode, and I just opening up a terminal session kind of for us. And we're running the dash dash is after the dash dash you can run it in any command. I can just do a I can do dash dash shell as well. And then we can also find the folder named this here. If I do here, I can do a CD. Now I can just CD into here, and we should have that data there. So it may not be nothing in there right now, but that's what the, oh. Yeah, so CD data, see that it should be nothing more than likely. Oh, well, yeah, there it is. But that must mean that we have that in there from when it created itself. So that looks good. So let me exit. It lets me. All right, that's good. So that took care of that. And yeah, we need to go ahead and create the deployment. So I'm just gonna do a run through that really quick. So it's k expose again. So we're gonna expose it, and we're gonna do dash. We're gonna do deployment. We're gonna expose the deployment name DB, I believe DB deployment, and we're gonna do dash dash name, and the name of it is gonna be DB, and we're gonna do port equals 5432. And remember, as I said before, because the port and the target port are the same, I can just reference the port and I should be good. And I don't need to mention the cluster IP because it's by default going to be cluster IP as far as the type. and that service was exposed. K get SVC and EP for endpoint. So now we have another service, an endpoint of this here, 1022.44.192.3. So that's going to be the new pod that we'll just create it. And it's showing here that it's bound to the 5432. And this one is 5432. And it's using cluster IP. And that looks all good. So we always want to make sure we, again, double check our work. So these two should be good. And we should just wrap it up with these last two, and we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and start with the deployment. Okay, here it goes. All right, so let me clear the screen here. Now we need to create a new deployment, so we can do a K create deployment, and we name the deployment results deployment. Then we need to do an image. So image is equal to, all right, this. And I think it's straightforward. This one doesn't really have anything else. Just make sure everything looks good here as far as that deployment. And we can just do a -W to watch it. Okay, it has transitioned over to 1 out of 1. So that looks good. Let's check that. And we can move on to the service and wrap this bad boy up. Okay, cool. All right. So now task not completed. So it just says port 5001 target port and no port. So it doesn't say what the name needs to be. So we can do a K expose deployment result. Results deployment. And I'll just name it. I don't have to name it, but I'll name it service SVC. And I can do -- port.
The name is there. The name is under the service. If you read, you see it's ready service. Result service. The name is there.
Yeah, it's I guess it doesn't necessarily say it though, but yeah, let's just do that since it's inferencing that, because some of them are named different than what they actually want us to name it. But yeah, perfect. So let's do it. So result service, and then the port is 5001, and then the target port. So remember now it mentioned there's a different target port, so we need to do target port. And that's going to equal to port 80 internally. And then we can do -- type equals node port. And remember the N and P have to be capital for this for some reason. And then I'm just going to create it this time. Before we did all the manual work, I'm just going to go ahead and expose it, and I'm gonna edit it. So K edit service SVC. The name of the service was what result the service, and then now I can just go down and I can just change the node port that it gave us randomly, which is probably again easier for sake of time. So 31001. So that looks good to me. All right, so that now should show us. Let me do K get service, and we have 31001 right here, and port 5001 is what is going to be used as the port. And you should see down here it says port 80. So you see how it says port 80 for the target port. So that's actually on the pod, the container itself. Outside of container, the pod is exposing that port 80 to port 5001. And that 5001 is being translated to 31,001 on the node port itself. So anyone outside of the network can hit this endpoint and they'll be able to reach you. But if they were inside, they will be able to use the 5001. So anything locally or within the cluster, 5001 is going to directly connect to port 80. And anything outside of the cluster, you'll be able to hit this endpoint, and you'll be able to communicate and get to that result service. So I think that's it. So we can go ahead and do a check, unless there's one more thing or something that we might have missed, but that should give us all green lights. Perfect. Boom. There you go.
I have a question though.
Yep.
So you said 80 is the container port, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and 5001 is the internal port. Basically, it's what the ports used to communicate with each other.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, but is there a way you can specify the node port number when you're creating the service, rather than going to edit the service?
So there's no flag there. And it just close out. So like for example, let's do a K expose or something like let me just do K expose deployment. I'm just gonna do DB just like an example. And it's gonna give us a list of what we can do. So I'll do worker, right? Um K expose worker and then dash name, right, equals blah. And then dash port, is equal to 80 or something. But if I do dash and like I just tab it, it can give me like a list of everything, right? So I don't know if you can. I don't think you could though. Because if you do node port, it's just gonna give you a randomly set of numbers, randomly set of ports.
I see. Okay.
Recursive session. I'm actually double checking and yeah, doesn't let you choose. So it chooses it randomly for you. So that's why those are the two options. So you have the one option again is to use the dot minus output server. So it hits it at because the actual manifest file is going to show you as if it already was a created resource. And
Mm-hmm.
the dash dash client is just showing you as if it was before you create the service. That's why when I did the dry run on the original one, the first time I did it showed like a creation timestamp because technically it really went through the process of doing it. It just didn't actually deploy the service. And that's why I had to remove a couple of those things when I actually use it when I went that route. So probably not the best route to use. And as I was
Makes
mentioning
sense.
before, that
Yeah.
default is cluster IP.
Yeah, makes sense. Another thing, quick question is I sort of opted late. What time does the session start? I thought it was 8 p.m. Central.
Oh, it's 8 p.m. Eastern.
Oh,
So
so
yeah,
7
yeah.
p.m.
So
Okay.
sorry if that was I thought I put put it in
Yeah,
there.
maybe it was probably but I probably overlooked it or something. So I was thinking it was Central for some reason. But
Mm,
yeah, thanks.
yeah, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so I'm glad that you were able to go ahead and catch the session. But that's kind of it that we were doing as far as today. We could go ahead and do a couple more things, some fun things if you guys want. But yeah, what's the time right now actually? I don't want to have a too long of a session on that. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Did you guys like this the way that we went through this type of question? This was kind of simple as far as setting up the services and the deployments. It just gets us nice repetition in. So that was a pretty fun exercise there. Um yeah, so I think someone said something in the chat.
I like these, PJ. Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoy these too, man. These are fun. These are a little bit different than the standard question, like quiz based. This is like a scenario based thing, so I enjoy it myself as well. So the CKS ones are even more fun, where you got to do a lot of different things to resolve issues. So it's really interesting. So I can't wait till we get into that, and I'm going to start doing it. So I want to get a lot of people as much as we can, as far as certified, and you know, we have a lot of success going on right now. So it's in the air. So I know Soho wants to go ahead and meet soon. So we should have a lot of other people certifying Desiree as well. Excuse me. Something got caught in my throat there. But yeah, we're looking forward to the success to come, which I can smell it
You're
right
funny.
here.
Yeah, I'm doing my mock exams now. I should be taking it pretty soon here.
All right. Don't tell nobody when you take it. Just come back with the success result. So there's no pressure on you as well.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, because I made sure I didn't tell you guys when I took mine. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna come back and let you guys know if it was good or bad or what happened. But hey, you know, I can't wait to see you, Desiree. You know, and Soho, you guys are, and everyone else who just starting, who's you know, on the cusp of, you know, taking it. You know, we appreciate everyone as far as in their wherever they are in their experience. And as I promised, when I got mine, I continue to do these. So it's not like I just got mine and ran away. So I do want to bring you guys with me as far as on this journey. So you guys are doing yeah, a great job as far as staying through with me. But we're gonna go ahead and close this session here. We're still gonna do some questions here on the back end. I might still start another recording. But this is Payload Pat, and this is Kate's Cadence. So this is another session again on the Kubernetes challenge. This is challenge 3. I hope you all enjoyed it and learned something. And if you haven't already, please hit that like button and also subscribe for more content. We do this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you can join, if you can't, you know, you can always look forward to the recording sessions as well that we have on YouTube. So you take care and see you next week. Thank you.
Appreciate you, bro.
No problem. So, oh no, I'm gonna continue sharing. Let me stop recording.